That wasn't as smooth as I had hoped. Why is it so dark in here? I probably look better in the dark anyway. So, hey, everybody. This is Aaron Live. It is a special late night edition, last second live stream. Um, I got a closeout tonight. No, it's a small thing. It's the Wraith of God second chance campaign. Um, my goal for the whole thing was to get enough money to make sure I was able to pay for the printing and shipping and that type of stuff. And I think we're right about there. But I want to give everybody a last second shot to get in there and back this thing. You'll find the link in the description of this video. If you're watching this tomorrow, it'll be closed. But tonight it is live. It's shadow banned, but it is still alive. But I'm not one to invite a bunch of people in and chat and all that kind of stuff. We did that today on Graybeards, and quite frankly, I find it exhausting. So I'm just going to paint and chat with you guys and see if we can get a little action on the campaign before we close out tonight at midnight. I probably won't go all the way to midnight because I'm old, but maybe I will. We'll see how it goes. I am going to complete this painting though, so forever how long it takes, that's how long it'll take. You guys, if you'd be kind enough, any of you guys, I see Green Laser's already posting the link there. Thank you so much. If you guys are on Twitter, go on there and let people know we're doing this, because I didn't actually put any message out there that I was doing this live. So, if anybody's awake and with nothing to do, we want to get them in here and have a little fun. Let's, since this is technically a closeout stream, let's take a quick look at what we're closing out. Pushing buttons it's become my life. Okay. This is the campaign that we're looking at tonight, ending at midnight. Now, this is the second chance campaign for Wraith of God #1. This is a second printing, but it has an all new cover. And I will tell you guys that are collectors out there in the audience that the print run on this is going to be low. It's going to be between probably less than 1,000 copies. So it's going to be pretty rare. In fact, it'll be probably more rare than the first printing. So it's something you should consider picking up. One of the other things in here, we have two cover options. We have the color cover, and then of course the virgin black and white cover. The interiors are full color, just like in the original. We see some of those pages here. The cool thing about this campaign is, even though you get this Dale Keown epilogue splash page in the book, and now we also get the Eon Chance trading card, who's a character that will kind of play a prominent role going forward in the Lopresti verse. He'll be appearing in the Garbage Man story, as well as the nightclub backup stories that are in the Wraith of God Blood Hunters. So in an important character, and I'm coloring that right now. So that'll be a trading card that everybody gets. I've still got the pencil drawing, the 11x14 pencil rough, if you will, for the trading card available for $150 in the campaign, which I think is a pretty good deal. But you can get this right here. This is like the original pencil drawing that Dale did for the werewolf piece. And before he cleaned it up and added some shadows and did the digital inking and all that kind of stuff. So I made this into a print that you can only get through this campaign. And we're at like 150 some backers right now. So the print run on this print is going to be really low. So if you want to get this, get a book and get this, it would be a good idea if you're a collectible fan. Anyway, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, it's a pretty simple, bare bones campaign. We just wanted to raise enough money to go to the printer with this, and we're right there knocking at the door at $10,185 and 153 backers. So if you're so inclined to give that a look and get a copy while you can get a copy. Look at that. We just got another backer. Thank you so much for that. We're at $10,218. I will overprint on this, and they will be for sale. The extra issues will be for sale on my website. However, they will be more expensive than the $25 you're paying here. So keep that in mind. Okay, well, we'll go back and revisit this later, but right now, well, first of all, let's see who's here. Ryu Gunpla. He's first in the house, and let me tell you what you get for that, Ryu. Nothing, but we thank you so much for attendance and appreciate you being here. Green Laser is here. He got in here second, and he's already posting stuff. We love the Green Laser. Squibs is here. Aaron Live, yes. Holder 6480 says hello. Hail CG. Sequential Treasures. James is in the house. Closeout stream indeed. Gary Martin, one of my brothers from Graybeards is here. Is that a mustard stain on your new Garbage Man shirt? It is. Better not be. It is not. Look at this. This is the white version. Now, this is interesting. You could get this in white and kind of this green color here. Like 6 people ordered the white one, and everybody else ordered the green one, which is fine. But I was shocked at how few people wanted a white Garbage Man shirt. I was one of them. I actually got a green one and a white one because, you know. So I'm pimping the white one tonight. There's nothing cooler. I got to be honest with you guys. There's nothing cooler than having your own merch. Empire Comics hat, character shirts. It's great fun. GJA is here. Says howdy. Glitch is here. David Williams, another one of my Graybeard compadres. He says, where in the heck do you get this energy to stream some more? Sheesh. You, my friend, are a dynamo. I am the crimson dynamo. Actually, I'm the white dynamo. So I don't really have the energy to do this, David, but because the campaign's closing tonight, I have to do it. So rather than just sit here and go, back my campaign, I am going to paint something that I've wanted to get painted. So right over there on the drawing board is page 50 of Wraith of God Blood Hunters. It is a 53-page story. What does that mean? That means I got 3 more pages to go. In fact, I'm inking the final panel right now. I'm halfway through it on page 50. So tomorrow's page 51. I will have the Wraith of God Blood Hunters story completed by the end of next week at the latest. And that means, well, it doesn't mean much, but it means that's done. And then I jump onto the nightclub story, which I've already done 3 pages for, and I got about 12 more to do on that. That will be penciled only by me and then shipped to my top secret high caliber inker. And so I will have Nightclub and Wraith of God both completely done by the end of May. Then I go into finished Garbage Man, which I have 11 more pages to go on that, which I think I'll probably get done in the month of June. I'm penciling and inking those. And then those pages go to Dan Lawless to color. Kelsey Shannon will be coloring the Nightclub story. And then after that, at the end of June, we go into July. I've got 7 pages of Kit Carter to do to finish out that. And so that'll be pencils, inks, maybe colors. We'll see. But so it's looking like this campaign, this book is going to be completed by the end of July, maybe, certainly before the end of August. And then if everything goes smoothly with with my designer and the printer and all that kind of stuff, it will be at the printers in late August. So let's cross our fingers. If everything goes smoothly, that's what we're looking at. In case you're wondering, there's a full-blown update. So things are moving along. It's looking good, and we'll have this book before you know it. And also, the #1 Second Chance campaign, which closes out tonight, that's going to the printer next week. And I'm thinking right now, they're telling me I might be able to get a 2-week turnaround. So we might see that book back here before the end of May, and then I can ship them out to you guys. So you guys will have them in June at the latest. I shouldn't say that because anything and everything can go wrong. So, but as it looks right now, that's what we're looking at. So, and the shirts, the second shirt order for the werewolves should be coming in any day now. Those will get shipped out. There is stuff going out the door here to you guys. And I thank you for your support and your patience when we're getting all this stuff done. Okay. Let me get back to the chat. Dan, the Pizza Man Genovese is here. Late Night Lopresti, you are correct. It is. Comic comic book. He's speaking Spanish to me, but I don't know it. I may be a Lopez, but I don't know how to speak Spanish. I took Spanish in 7th grade, but I don't remember a whole lot. Jasu is here. Says he is backer 170. Are we on 170 already? Great. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Sheeple Hunter is here. He says he backed a few minutes ago. Thank you. Elongated Musket. Congrats, Aaron. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Sequential Treasures says not that much time left to back. Don't be a knucklehead and back it now. Thank you so much, James. I appreciate that. Gary Sulla is here. Hey, Gary, thanks for joining us. Let's see here. Go out in the sun for 35 minutes. If you are like me, you will turn into the Crimson Dynamo. That's about right. Buy Wraith of God instead of Whoopi Goldberg's new comic. I would totally agree with that. Duck Bacon is back for more. Thanks for joining us. Humphrey Bear, of course, is here promoting Disco Pizza. I don't know what that means, but I used to go to the discos, and I used to and still do eat pizza. So there is something going on there. All right, I'm switching cameras. We're going to get to work. I can hear people rolling their garbage cans out on the street because it is garbage night. We had a thunderstorm not too long ago. It was freaking me out. Okay, so I did this sketch as like one of my late night cool down sketches. And so I haven't cleaned it up yet. So I want to clean it up a little bit. Now, I don't really normally use these gum erasers or kneaded erasers or whatever the heck they're called. I used to in high school all the time, but I haven't really regularly. But I got a bunch of them sitting there in the drawer, so I thought, well, they're there, use them, man. So, yeah. It's actually kind of nice. I don't know if it's the paper or if it's the eraser, but they don't really, it doesn't seem to be pulling up the ink too much. On these pens, when you erase them, they do have a tendency to go gray on you a little bit. And this doesn't seem to be doing that. So I'm so excited. Now, this is technically a sketch. So my watercolor approach is going to be loose. Not that different really than what I normally do, but I'm going to be a little looser than normal just because it is a sketch and I kind of want to maintain that sort of sketch quality to it. I love doing these Frazetta crazy trees with the moss on them. Out of all the stuff that Frazetta did and that I looked at as a kid, it's amazing that the tree stumps are the stuff that sticks out to me. All right, it might be nice if I had a paintbrush. What did I do with those things? I got my hairdryer, my trusty JCPenney 1200 right there. I've got this spotlight on here, and it makes it look creepy, doesn't it? This is actually, it still looks creepy. I mean, probably because it is. It's dark in here, so I'm, what the heck? I'm telling you, man. You got paintbrushes, and then suddenly they're gone. Shelly must have come in here and cleaned up when I wasn't looking, but that's all right. She means well, so I just need. I usually work with two sizes here. I need a big one in case these are not in great shape, so do not live by my example of how poorly I treat my brushes. But so anyway, I'll have a big one here if I wanted like splash some background color, which I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. And then of course, I just use old inking brushes that don't really have a great tip anymore. And this is a number 2 Raphael Kolinsky. Really nice brushes, but I'll use those for my watercolor brushes. And of course, you always want to have a big jug of nice dirty water to paint with. Yeah, there he is, Boomer. Can't find his paintbrush. I know. Is Aaron doing 2 streams? Not at once, but 2 streams in one day. He's saying that's Shanna the She-Devil. Color her hair red. Well, either going to go red or blonde, but I'll go red. I don't have a problem with that. No, I did this. I did this like a late night cool down sketch. Excuse me, a couple weeks ago. I just haven't got around to painting it until now. I needed an excuse to. I needed something to do um, while I'm live streaming, trying to convince all of you out there to back Wraith of God #1 Second Chance campaign. And I thought, well, I will entice you with some watercolor painting. All right. I'm going to do the flesh tone first just because that's what I do. I'm going to get some burnt sienna. Okay, I got these tube colors. Unlike Kelsey Shannon has his little watercolor cake things that he gets at the dollar store. These are art store paints. The problem with these tube paints is if you're sloppy like I am, and sometimes you don't really put the caps on that great, they dry out. And so then you're actually dipping a wet brush into the tube to get the paint out, but such is life. I always use, unless I'm doing, something special color-wise, I always use burnt sienna as my flesh tone. Now, if you're using oil paints, you still can use the burnt sienna, but you add white to it, right, to get it lighter. And with watercolors, obviously, I just put a little more water in there, and you'll see it makes a nice little flesh tone. And I don't want to go too dark with it because I'm a color coward, if that makes any sense. I don't like to lay on heavy color. I like to slowly build up because I feel like I'm in more control that way. I could be much quicker as a painter, though, if I would just get bold and go in and lay a darker color on here, but I'm not. I'm a coward. It's true. I do the same things even with my colored pencils. I don't go in really heavy with the color at first. I like to slowly build up. So you can see, oh, for crying out loud. Now that's going to wash it out. I was going to say it does make a nice flesh tone. It's a little hot because of that lamp on there, but at least I can see it. So normally if I was doing a complete painting here, I would go ahead and paint the whole thing. Like if I wanted the sky blue, for example, I would go back in here and paint everything blue. And then I would go back in and go over the top of that with the flesh tone and whatever I'm using for the hair and the cave girl outfit. But like I said, this is just sort of a watercolor sketch, so I'm not going to go full bore. It's not the smartest thing in the world to paint the background last. So if you're not going to, if you know you're not going to paint the background, then that's fine. But knowing me, I'll probably get this done and go, you know what? I'm going to put a little color in the background. And then I've got to be a little bit more careful with it so I don't get it into my flesh tones. But if it ends up looking like crap, I just use the old excuse. Well, it's just a sketch, so shouldn't have too high of expectations. And then, of course, if it turns out good, it's like, yeah, I planned it that way the whole time because I'm a master illustrator. So I got all the angles covered, man. I've always got to be careful that I don't get too much color on there. Like I said, most people would just go in there bold and put the color in there, and that's fine. But okay, so I've got this really kind of light, I don't know. Now let me do her face first, and then I'm going to switch cameras and show you guys what it actually looks like with the what color I'm seeing, because what you're seeing is washed out because of the light I have on here. Actually, it's not horrible what you're seeing, but it's not totally accurate. Okay, so just bear with me for a second here. I'll switch cameras, and then I think you'll get a better look at this right here. I don't know, it's pretty dark. But as you can see, there's light. Why is this so stinking dark? Hang on a second. That didn't really help, did it? But anyway, you can see pretty well. That's what you're seeing there is pretty much what I'm seeing. Just kind of a light flesh tone. And then we just start building from there. Now, I'm not going to get too crazy and make it too dark, but I do want to enrich it a little bit. David Williams, of course. Oops, start over. Reenie's about to stream over you. Reenie, you know, she can do what she has to do. Oh, Dan, we've got a long ways to go on Blood Hunters. We shall see. We shall see how it all works out. Her ankles aren't covered. She's basically naked, according to Facebook, apparently. There is David encouraging me to start over again. Okay, so let's get back to what we're doing here. Now, those of you guys have watched me before do this, you'll notice that I brought up the old JCPenney hairdryer. What I like to do is I don't like to do wet on wet in watercolor because it gets muddy. So I like to make sure that the first layer is dry before I start adding more color. So bear with me as I turn this on. Boom. Now your watercolor is dry and you can start layering over the top of it if you would like. And I would like. So I think, I'm not a big red guy, but I'm a very big orange guy. And my orange is dried up. So this is what I was talking about. When the tube dries up, no, it's no different than Kelsey's, when he does he uses those cake paints, right? This is still good. You just can't squeeze it out. So you have to stick the brush in there. Okay, again, I don't want this. I want this pretty light. So I don't want to get too crazy with it. So I'll go in here and put some reds in here where I want to put them. When I get this kind of little pink mixed in there, then I'm going to go back over it with a darker burnt sienna layer. And then we should have a pretty nice flesh tone at that point. I mean, in a lot of ways you can consider this an underpainting. I just want to get some colors underneath here, and then when I start putting darker layers on here, you've got, we've already got the burnt sienna in there, and Now we're going to have some, a little bit of pinkish undertone here. Ooh, did I pick up an eraser stubble? I did. And that's where you say, yeah, it's just a sketch. But now if I was like doing an oil painting or something, you would say you put more red in the elbows and the knees and the heels on her feet, those type of things where the I guess the skin is thinner there, or something to that effect. I remember reading something like that. It's kind of a logical reason to put color in certain spots, but I mean, I think you can kind of go crazy like Frazetta and just throw color in wherever you want to. Be more of a fine artist than a commercial artist that's a slave to convention, which I tend to be. I don't think outside the box nearly enough. My daughter's more of a fine artist in her sensibilities, so she does a really good job of thinking outside the box. So I'm learning from her to push it a little bit. Okay, so we're laying down this kind of real light layer of red, right? I'll put some in the cheeks here. A little bit on the tip of the nose because she's a drunk. I always put red on the nose. And I mean, always. And I have people, who is it? I think it was Mike Perkins once at CrossGen. He's like, what if she drew, is that whoever I did it, would do that coloring, he'd go, what is he, drunk? What is she, drunk? And I was just like, no, but I don't know. I just think it looks better. So I said, not being a big drinker myself, I wouldn't know what you're talking about. Although I did work for this lady who owned a used bookstore, right? So in high school, it was one of the many jobs I had. And she was a drunk and her nose was red like all the time. This light is pissing me off. It's not really doing what I want it to do. Okay, let's see what you guys are saying here. Red noses are my pet peeve. Dale A says red noses are my pet peeve. Well, I'm going to piss you off then, I guess. No, she's not a drunkard, Judge Dredd. Cheeks are further down. Yeah, we'll get some red in there on those cheeks too. Bananas to all, says Richie Dupe. Now that's Humphrey Bear says, who is Rainey? She is my nemesis. We were not really true. She's super nice. So I like her. We were neck and neck. Our campaign, she was just like, I don't know, $1,500 ahead of me. Then I got shadow banned and she didn't. And then she just blasted me. So now she's, excuse me. So we had a little competition going there until I got shadow banned and she didn't. And that was pretty much the end of the competition. So, but she's doing quite well with her campaign, and we're all quite glad to see that. Because she's been doing indie comics for a long time, and it's nice to see her get a real successful campaign going like she's got. I'm trying to think of the name of her campaign off the top of my head, and I can't. I couldn't think of anything today. We were talking about movies during Graybeards, and I could not remember anybody's name, like actors and stuff. It was driving me nuts. I thought, is this the end for me? Is old age finally setting in? Is retirement in my future? Yeah, if I had any money, I would consider retiring, but being an artist my whole life, yeah, as you can imagine, I have no money. So I will be drawing until I'm dead. You'll see me like 85 years old doing draw streams. I can't remember that actor's name, but oh boy, what a performance. So yeah. I'll be painting until I can, at least until I'm no longer competent. Actually, you know what I'd like to do is kind of go the McGinnis route. Robert McGinnis, the famous paperback cover artist and movie poster artist from the 60s and 70s. He went into, and a lot of guys did this, a lot of commercial artists ended up going into fine arts and like doing Western painting and stuff. And oh my gosh, his Western art is so freaking awesome. If you have not seen it, check out Robert McGinnis. Just Google him. And like Robert McGinnis Western art. Oh, he has a book out, which I have, of some of his best Western stuff. And it's not like typical Western art. It's almost like comic book art. It's so dynamic and interesting looking that even if you're not a fan of that stuff, I think you'll probably be a fan of his stuff. So I highly recommend it. But he's like 90 something, I think now, and still painting. And he uses something called egg tempera, where you take tempera inks and you mix it. You literally mix it with an egg. I've never really understood what the deal is with that, but I guess it gives the paint consistency or something, or I don't know. But it's it's an really old school type of painting, but he still does it, and it's just freaking awesome. Big fan of his stuff. Big, huge fan of his stuff. You guys aren't getting the details here, but you will when like I said, I work really light and I build up slowly, which I think is, like I said, it's a gutless way to do it, but I've always been gutless when it comes to painting. Maybe it's because I don't do it enough and I sort of don't have the confidence. So I'm always concerned that I'm going to go too heavy, and then it's not going to look good or whatever. And it's usually not the case, but at least with oil paints, it's like, you go in heavy and you just cover it up, if you screw it up. Because of course, oil paints are opaque. Watercolors are transparent. So trying to cover up watercolors is just basically saying I'm creating mud. And that's my biggest fear. It's like creating mud or having too many hard lines, and it really, I don't know, not looking the way you want it. I mean, I'm not going for an airbrush look, but I don't want it really heavily splotchy either. Although there's guys that do that really well just by layering and layering and layering. And but again, watercolors is definitely not for cowards. And I'm a coward. But this is the stuff I learned to use when I was a kid. And I always, even though it's, like I said, sometimes it's not very forgiving, but I kind of know how to handle it, and how to kind of get out of mistakes that I make with it. Oil painting is much more intimidating to me, although I do love it. It's just, this is not something I've done a lot of. And the other thing with oil painting is it's intimidating because the setup and the cleanup, oh my gosh, cleanup is setting up, get your color palette ready and everything takes a long time. Cleanup is a pain in the butt. And cleanup for watercolor is easy. It doesn't take long, but I think I'm more worried about dealing with the mess and cleaning up and the setup. It's like, seems like such an overwhelming task sometimes that you're like, yeah, I'm not gonna oil paint. It's like you have to have the whole day cleared to oil paint. Which you'd think with my kids being gone that I'd have plenty of time, but I really don't. Because I keep doing these crazy comics. All right, hair dryer. Now, see, also, if you get like I don't know if you guys can see it or not. There's you can't really see it, but there's a little bit of streaking going here that I want to get rid of. So I can go back in with watercolor and go like this, and it sort of push the dark streakiness over to the side, right? And that's one way to solve sort of a, pardon the expression, streaking problem. Or if you have an edge or a line in there you don't like, you can always go back in with water and then just do like this and push the color to the edge, where 9 times out of 10, that's where you want the darkest colors anyway. So let me try that again. Hang on. I also like to throw in a little bit of mauve sometimes in the shadowed areas. So mauve is basically a grayed down or watered down violet, right? Because violet's just too intense. But mauve is really nice. It works really well with skin tones, but you got to be careful that you don't put it on too heavy because you don't want their skin to look bruised or, like someone just beat the crap out of her. That's not kind of the look you're going for. But you can use that mauve in the shadow areas, and it's quite effective. It works, like I said, it works really well with flesh tones. Got a little bit of copper tone tan line butt going there. Okay, so let's pull out of this for a second. Well, yeah, in watercolors you can, if you know what you're doing, if you know what you, or I should say, if you know what you want to do, you can just kind of wing it. And I know I'm having a very limited palette on this, but if I would I've done watercolors paintings that are pretty extensive, and I had to figure out my setup before I did it. This being, like I said, a watercolor sketch, I'm not spending too much time, factoring in what color scheme am I going to use and how is this going to work and all that kind of stuff. So Wolf E says, contributor 175, thank you for making the second printing available. You demand, Hail CG, thank you so much. Thank you for backing. GJ Martinez says, watching you do this is so relaxing and very enjoyable. Thank you. Well, thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate it. Where is her belly button? It's right in here, so you're not really seeing it because she's turning kind of away from it. So it'd be right on the other side of that fold right there. So don't act like I forgot it or something. I don't know what I'm doing. Jeez. Let's take a quick look at the old campaign, if you don't mind, because this is a closeout stream after all. So while I let that dry for a second, let's take a look at the old campaign trail. There it is. Let's refresh and see what kind of action, if any, we've gotten. Look at that, $10,359. Now I can actually pay taxes on this money too and still not be in the hole. Thank you guys so much for supporting this campaign. Couldn't do it without you. And I know you guys know that, but I think it's important to say it. So anyway, that's the real reason I'm doing this, is to promote this and get as many backers here as we can before midnight. And I'm taking my numbers to the printer, hopefully on Monday. It depends on my designer, but sometime next week. And we'll get them turned around as fast as we can and shipped right out to you guys. So you'll have if you haven't read it yet, you can read it, kind of get it settled in, get you hyped for the next one, which will only be a few months behind this. So, and Dino wants everybody to know that he's here. GJ Martinez says, I have to say, Aaron, that you definitely hit the right sexy just right on your female illustrations. And you push it a little bit, but you don't go too far. At least I don't. That's exactly right, Randy. The evil of the IRS. Do you use acrylics ever like Bisley? Well, I don't use them like Bisley, but I do use them. I've done... I oftentimes combine watercolor and acrylics. Like I'll do flesh tones in watercolor, and then and I'll use acrylic for other things in the painting, like clothing or something like that. I've done my Fantastical Creatures book has several paintings. Most of them are watercolors. There's a couple of oils in there that aren't all that great, to be honest with you. And then there's a couple of acrylic paintings in there as well. What I find is when I have to do large areas, it's hard to cover large areas without it getting really spotty using watercolor. But acrylic you can get really painterly with, and you can do some interesting things texture wise. And so a lot of times I will, in large areas of color, I'll go in and use acrylics. And I probably don't use them correctly because I will a lot of times develop sort of a, I'm going to use some terminology here, but like a dry brush effect almost. I don't have a ton of water on it. And what I can do is when you use a brush with, this is an oil painting term, but if you use a brush with color on it, but it's not real wet, whether that's oil painting or watercolor or whatever. Well, it doesn't really work in watercolor, but oil painting or acrylics, you can do this. And you kind of try to get a soft edge on it a little bit. It's called scumbling. And I do that a lot with acrylics. And I don't think that's really how you're supposed to use them. But I think ultimately, if you get the effect that you want, then that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you're using the paint the correct way or not. One guy that I really admire, Paul Bonner, does a lot of trolls and monster type stuff. He's, I believe he's Irish. And he did a ton of work for like Wizards of the Coast and, those role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And growing up, he told me that he would see oil paintings, but he didn't really, he didn't know the difference between oils, watercolors, whatever. And all he had really access to were watercolors. So he started emulating these oil paintings with his watercolors. And so you look at his paintings now, and he's like developed this style where he's using watercolors, but you'd swear it's an oil painting. And so again, it doesn't really matter how you use your medium. It matters, how, if you get it to do what you want it to do. And so I was blown away because even looking at the stuff up close, it was hard to tell that it was watercolor. I'm just like, I would never use watercolors that way, but because it would never have occurred to me to do that. Dan Barrington is the same way. He thought that, he was seeing oil paintings as a kid, but he thought he didn't, so he was emulating that style with watercolor. And so you look at his paintings and stuff, and they're very thick and heavy, but that's all watercolor. And I use watercolor very thinly. And is that a word, thinly? And and use it as a transparent medium, which it is, to get what I'm going for. So, what do they say? There's a million different ways to skin a cat, right? Not that I promote cat skinning. I'm just saying. Going back in here with my red. It's not really red. It's cadmium red, pale hue. It's more of a reddish orange. But you guys, I don't know if you can tell that or not by what you're seeing here. And usually you leave your highlights in here by leaving white areas, but like in this shoulder, I don't think that highlight is as hot as I want it. So I might go back in with some white at the tail end of this and put my highlights in like that with an opaque white. Again, putting the red in where the knee is. And then doing my best to blend it out, so it's not real heavy. All right. You can do a good job of creating a highlight on here by just making your area around darker. So if I kept laying darker and darker here, this spot right here on her butt cheek would be hotter. It'd be highlighted like what you've got here, where I've got dark around the edges, but then it's pretty much white here. That's going to create your natural highlight. I really want to go in and do a video on lighting, because it's so important, but it's really not that complex. I try to treat like different parts of the body as different individual shapes, and then what you do is you do your lighting according to that shape, that particular shape. Rather than thinking of the body as a whole, you think of this shoulder as a ball, right? And this arm as a cylinder, and so forth. In that way, you can sort of get a grip on how to treat your light source and how the light, would lay on a rounded surface like that. So, all right, so I'm going to go in with some of this mauve in the shadow areas. And again, I'm going to be a wimp and put it on real lightly because I don't want it to be too purple. So if we go in here and say, okay, these are the areas that are going to be shadowed here. And I don't care if I have an edge there because that's going to be the shadow. And I'm going to go back over that in a minute as soon as that dries with some burnt sienna. Put a little bit here on the knee. If it's too heavy, just hit it a little bit with some water. And it becomes just yeah, let's see where else I can put this. What else can I do to screw this up? Let's see. Obviously, I'm going to put this where I think I'm going to want more of a shadow look. The great thing about doing this live is if you do screw it up, well, you just got to go with it. I don't know that I'm going to put too much more work on her face. I don't really want it to get too dark, but I do want to put a little bit of shadow over her eyes. So I'm going to go in here with a darker burnt sienna. Make those eyes pop out of there a little bit. There we go. Stuff always ends up drying lighter than what you anticipated it would. So that's the other thing. It's like you can't get scared and say, "Oh my gosh, that's so dark! I just ruined it," because it'll probably dry lighter. And there's always going to be a time. I was talking to Peter DeSev, who's a best known, who's a cover artist for the New Yorker. He was like, he can't remember ever doing a painting where he wasn't, convinced at some point that he'd ruin it and he was going to throw it away. But you just sort of keep working at it, and it sort of works itself out. But again, it's easier to work those problems out if you don't go in too heavy to begin with. And that way you've got lighter colors underneath, and so it's a little easier to fix if you need to. I want a little bit more red on that calf, I think. That's right. Screw ups are called happy little mistakes. Exactly. Hey, Paul Brillart's here. Frazetta Rocks and Topiary. Floyd Norman did a nice Princess Kita for my daughter in watercolor. Great Disney guy. Awesome. Comic book, Aaron, between you and me, what is Mike S. Miller's problem? I'm not sure I know what you mean. Steven's right. Brian Stelfreeze does great color work. I mean, it's the thing, it's like you got to do it. He does a lot of that stuff. I do not do enough color work, and I'll give Kelsey Shannon some credit here, because he's inspired me to get back into painting, because those of you who watch Graybeards know that he paints a lot of his pictures on the stream. He just goes, gets down and dirty and does it. And I was like, man, that's so cool. I need to get back to doing that. And And this is the most painting I've done in the last month, like in years. And it's nice to sort of just get back into it. And, you know, even if some of your pieces are not as brilliant as you would like them to be. You can see what I did right there. I don't know if you can see it clearly, but I took some water and I had some lines on the leg that I didn't like, and I just got them wet and then scooched them up until they faded a little bit, and then I was much happier with what I had on the bottom. So there you go. I should show you guys some, I've got some examples of my acrylic work. I suppose I could get. All right, so hang with me as I let that dry for a moment. Let me grab something out of the old flat files. I used to do a bunch of painting back in the day, as they say, especially when I was periods where I didn't have any work. What the heck are they? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe onto something. Hang on. Oh, these are good. Okay, here we go. Some of you are probably going to have seen this stuff before, but it's interesting nonetheless. I'll show you some examples while we let that girl dry. All right, so take a look at this. Actually, that's not a bad, that's a fairly accurate description of what the color looks like. Okay, so this stuff back here, you can see kind of these square shapes and stuff. I use this kind of orange and pink mixture. Now, the funny thing is, if this had been watercolor, this would just be like brown and ugly. But I laid the orange in first because I was doing an orange-blue or blue-orange complementary. And then I dropped this pink in over the top of the orange once it dried. And this is all acrylic. You can probably see kind of the brush strokes in there. It almost looks like oil, right? And I was using this square brush to kind of get this textured look, which I really like. Now, all of this in here, this blue creature guy, that's all acrylic, all of it. You can see acrylic gets a little splotchy in there, but I was using, excuse me, I was using a square brush so I could get more of a texture. Now the girl, this is my daughter when she was very little, her flesh tones are all watercolor, okay? But then the dress, the jean vest and the dress, acrylic. And I think there's even some acrylic down in here. And this background's all acrylic. So this is a perfect combination of me, like this pink right here on his nose, watercolor. So, you know, I'm like all over the place. These were for a children's book that I never did, but now this pizza troll is what he was called. Like this, the crust on here is all watercolor. This is a combination of watercolor, this brown, right? But then I would go in with some highlights in acrylic. Okay, this whole hat is acrylic. You can see how blocky that line work is on the hat. And I was able to get that using acrylics rather than watercolors. Because you put the acrylics down and it dries like that. The pants are acrylic. And this tree is acrylic. Again, you can probably see like those brush strokes in there. And then, of course, look at the paint down at the bottom is all acrylic. Okay, so again, I mixed my acrylics and watercolors. This one, same thing. This vest is watercolor because I wanted this kind of spotty sort of leather look to it. And then the hamburger bun is all watercolor. All that is watercolor on there. His face is watercolor. The hair is watercolor. However, this shirt, acrylic, all this is acrylic, and the boots are watercolor again because I wanted that kind of spotty leather look to the boots. And then the girl is all watercolor because she's so small. And then we've got acrylic down here, and again using that square brush to create texture down there, right? Now this is probably the most recent complete painting I did. And this is interesting because this is also a mix of, it looks a little washed out. That's better. Okay, so his flesh tone is all watercolor. The beard is watercolor with some acrylic highlights in it. The face is all watercolor. However, his outfit, acrylic. The background is all acrylic. Okay, because I could get more of the type of look that I wanted, like this sort of cloudiness coming up here. It's much easier to do that with acrylic than it is with watercolor. Now she is all watercolor, but again, she's a small figure, and so I didn't really have to move the paint around that much of a bigger area. Now these rocks here, they're a combination of watercolor and acrylic. There's some acrylic in here, and like I got this rich green here by putting in watercolor over the top, but then there's some of this is watercolor, some of it's acrylic. So it's a very bizarre process that I've developed and continue to work on. But and there's I'll even use colored pencil over the top of this if I feel like I need to, to get a certain look or whatever. This was in the Emerald City Comic-Con charity book for St. Jude's Hospital that they do every year. That was the last year I was there, 2019. I am never going back to Seattle because I don't like what they let happen to their city, and I don't like what's going on in Portland either. Unfortunately, I live here, so I can't really escape it. But anyway, there's some pretty decent examples of my combination using of watercolor and acrylic. Humphrey Bear is like that Hamburglar. Though the Hamburglar. No, it's the Hamburger Giant, I think is what his name is. It's close, though. Travis is hungry for a hamburger. Geez, look at that double cheeseburger. A lot of food talk all of a sudden. Ben Grimm for Little Caesars. That's funny, Paul. He's talking, of course, about the pizza troll. Well, I thought, if I made his skin look like cheese, lumpy cheese, it would make sense. So Texas beckons. You know where I really want to go? I want to go to Wyoming. It's like 70 or 80% conservative and, beautiful country, but probably too cold in the winter. So stoners, where? In Wyoming? or Texas. Thanks for showing us. Fantastic overall. Thank you, GJ. Appreciate that very much. Belmont Press, very impressive. Thank you. Anywho, let's get back to this girl, shall we? Actually, let's take a look on the old campaign trail first. If I can find it. Oh, there it is. Since this is technically a closeout stream, I do kind of want to check this every once in a while. Let's see if we've got any new action on here. Survey says, nope. Okay, we're at 158 backers, $10,359. That's fantastic. Thank you guys very much. Like I said, I wasn't shooting for the moon with this. I realized it was a second printing, and most of you guys already have the first book. But I did get asked about it enough that I figured it was worthwhile to make a second print available and made it more attractive by putting a new cover on it. So thank you for the support of that. Now, let's see what we can do with this. I'm going to lay off the flesh tones for a while and do everything else, and we'll see how, because this looks really dark against a white background, but when we get our hair and all this stuff in here, it may not look quite as dark, and then I may say, well, maybe I'll put a little more in there, or maybe I'll just drop some highlights in and call it good. But let's do her hair. So we have a demand for a redhead. So it's funny because redheads aren't really redheads, right? It's more orangish. So we're going to go in here with orange first. And then I'll put some red over the top of the orange. Because this looks more, I don't know, what would you call it? Strawberry blonde with that kind of orange there. So we're going to need some more red in here, but now I'm getting a little bold with this color on the hair because it's kind of what I want. So yeah, she looks like a really dark blonde right now, which is, it's a good look. I was going to do her just, let me phrase that. I was going to color this hair just like this and leave it, but now that you've convinced me to make her a redhead, we'll go ahead and drop this orange in here. It's really more like gold. And let that dry, then we'll drop a little red, thin layer of red over the top of it, hair dryer. Now I want to get, I forgot to color her ear, so I'm going to put a little burnt sienna in there, flesh tone. All right, hair dryer. And then, and yes, it is correct. This hair dryer is over 30 years old, but it still works. So why would I get a new one? I'm still using an old Wacom tablet that I bought 20 years ago. Still works. Everybody's got these Cintiqs now, and I'm like still using an old Wacom or Wacom or whatever the heck it is tablet. It's like I don't like to spend money unless it's on old comics, and I'm okay with it. But I don't like buying clothes. I don't like buying food. I just want to buy old comics. I do feed my family, though. I don't want you to think that I'm starving them so I can buy old comics. It's I'm not that bad. Make her cheeks a little rosier. I don't want a hard edge on her face from this, so I've got to wet that down a little bit. Okay. All right, so let's go with some red over the top of this orangish yellow here we've got. Put some streaks in here. Give it a little texture so it's not just one big mass. I wonder if I can move this in a little tighter. Oops. I don't know why that looks so dark. I got a light right directly on the... It's got like some sort of automatic aperture that it, if it gets too light, it'll darken it. I don't know. But anyway, so we'll go ahead and add some streaks of red over the top of this orange or yellows. I guess it's more of a gold color, isn't it? And should create the illusion that we've got a redhead here. Now, this case, I don't want the paint too wet because I do want to be able to differentiate between the red streaks I'm putting on it and the orange that's underneath it. And I'm not necessarily looking for a fade here like I am on the flesh tones. I'm trying to get individual lines. It's a very stylized approach, but it kind of, because it's hair, I want some of these areas lighter and other areas darker. And it's easier to kind of create that with just, striping. Okay, let's see here. It's not, she's not going to be like a flaming redhead here, but I don't know if I want to commit to full on red. But see, it's funny, the orange underneath ends up being the highlights to the darker red, because red actually is a very dark color. So I play my cards right here. Okay. So we can put some red in here, but leave some of that yellow streaking in there, and that will read as a highlight in the hair. The thing is, it's like when you have richer colors in here, it really looks more striking, which is a good reason for why I should go in and be bold with my colors. But because I always end up getting way darker, but I don't know. I'm a product of, this is just how I've done it my whole life. And it's hard to, hard to change that. It's like when I do this and kind of darken this, and then you can see it light for a minute, and then it gets all, but there you can see it pretty well, how that works. So like I said, the yellow parts in there and the orange parts become kind of the highlights, right? So it gives some depth to that hair. All right, so let's paint the old cowhide here, or mammoth hide, I guess is probably what it would be, right? So I'm going to go in here with some burnt umber, which is more of a darker green tinted brown. Because obviously I want something that's going to be distinct from the flesh tone, since they're right next to each other. Again, I'm not going to get too bold, but I probably should. But so we'll go in with this sort of really light, sort of burnt umber underpainting, and then I'll darken it as I go. Except in this case right here, it wasn't as thin as I thought it was. So I went, see, if you just go bold and darken it in, it looks fine, but I just am such a coward when it comes to laying down heavy color like that. Because I guess I'm always afraid that if I happen to do it really, really dark and it doesn't look good, then it's like you're screwed, right? All you can do is maybe try and put white out over the top of it or something, and that ain't gonna work. So, but that was such a small area that even if it ended up being too dark for what I wanted, you're not really gonna notice it that much. And I could go over the top with acrylic here and lighten some of these areas like they were catching the light or something. So there is ways to go in and, you know, correct it if you go too dark. And there I'm going really dark. I wasn't necessarily intending to do that, but I'll just go in and blend it out a little bit so it's not quite as dark. And ultimately it'll probably end up being that dark, but you wouldn't think a guy like me would need a hairdryer, but I do, but only for painting. There's some spots I'm going to put some highlights in too. And I'll probably get some acrylic white to put the highlights in. And thin it just a little bit so it's not like pure white and super hot, but just enough to lighten up those areas so that they feel dimensional and not flat. But you can see how different this that brown is in compared to her flesh toe. And that's the kind of separation we want. Wish there was a bigger market for jungle comics. You know, draw this, you know, cave girls, cavemen, dinosaurs, that kind of stuff all day long. I guess we're all like products of, you know, what we grew up reading. And I just happened to be in the period of time where this, you know, fantasy stuff was really hot. And it was the rage of the day. And a lot of you guys are 80s or 90s kids when, you know, John Byrne or Simonson were, you know, knocking it out of the park with superhero stuff. And so that became, you know, the rage. But yeah, it was all Frazetta Wrights and Barry Smith for me. And there was some good superhero stuff going on, but not, you know, some Starlin stuff and, you know, Buscema and things like that. But it was all sort of still kind of felt like a Marvel House style, where, you know, the stuff that Wrightson and Barry Smith were doing felt very illustrated and very different. The comics were in trouble in the 70s, and especially the early 70s, the whole superhero boom was kind of, people were burning out on it, and they were looking for, it was really weird because you had the 60s were such this great, the Silver Age, such a great time for superhero stuff. It was, obviously the creation of the Marvel Universe in a lot of ways. But, in 1968, Marvel got their distribution freedom from DC, and they launched all the new titles, Captain Marvel and Submariner and the Hulk and Silver Surfer, and everybody got their own title in 1968. But by 1970, there was just like a real burnout on superheroes, so they were looking towards other things to try and sell comics, and that was ended up being horror and a lot of karate stuff and exploitation stuff that was based on exploitation films like Luke Cage and that type of thing. Of course, the Bruce Lee fad spawned Shang-Chi and Iron Fist and all these kind of things. But it's very similar to what happened in the 50s, right? When after World War II, the superheroes kind of died out in popularity. And so by the time you got into the late 40s and early 50s, people weren't really buying superhero magazines anymore. So that's when you saw these Westerns and horror comics come up. And the same thing, again, like I said, happened in the early 70s. And that's when I was really reading comics. And not that I wasn't reading superhero comics, but, all this fantasy stuff was being flooded into the market. So I was seeing a majority of that stuff, and it was all really illustrative and cool. So, of course, I gravitated towards it. Being an artist myself, I went to the thing that was most artistic looking to me. If I'd just been a fan that wasn't an artist, but just a reader. I mean, I was a fan and a reader, but I was an artist also. I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have gravitated to that stuff. I don't know. R. Brueggemann says you can do Jungle comics with the right compelling storyline. Think about the story and characters in Walking Dead. That's what made the book. Jungle comics could be setting for humor to horror. Well, you're right. Randy Hill says, can we get to 200 backers in 2 hours? I don't know, Randy, can we? Yeah. Well, actually, they still have JCPenney's over here at the mall. I worked at Montgomery Ward. I don't know if you guys remember that place. When I was, just before I went to film school. So I was like from when I was 19 to 20-ish, because I think I went to film school, right? I might have been 21 when I went to film school. But I worked for a year or two at Montgomery Ward, and that, of course, went out of business. But that was pretty much, department stores were the thing, man. Not anymore. But I do have a jungle sort of, it's a kind of a hybrid sci-fi jungle thing that I'm going to put out there called Primal Zone. I got a lot of IPs, man. I don't know if it's smart just to stick with, just do Wraith of God till people can't stand it anymore, or mix it up a little bit. I'm going to end up mixing it up, so. Just because I want a little variety in my work. Plus, I got a bunch of stories I want to tell, and they're not all Wraith of God stories. And so it's like, I'm pretty convinced. I was thinking about doing a Savage Tales book, but the there's some logistical problems with working with a bunch of people. And, when you're doing when you're doing a campaign, you have to wait it has to be funded to a certain point to that you can pay everybody what you want to pay them. And, there's no guarantees, right? So I would rather, after thinking about it for a good long time, I think, have the money in pocket just to pay people to do the stories. And then, if it doesn't fund to the level that I want it to, then at least those people aren't getting screwed over. So I think I maybe going back to my original plan, which is after Wraith of God Blood Hunters to launch the Kit Carter graphic novel. And then after that, do the third Wraith of God book. But like I did with this one, do backup stories with my other IPs in it. And so the Wraith of God story will be longer and the backup stories will be shorter. And that way I can get some stuff out there. And then you guys can say, this is cool. Let's see more of that. Or nah, let's not see any more of that. And then I can do, some different genres. And you guys can get some different genres. But I got to admit, my mind changes daily on this stuff. But although as I get closer to finishing Blood Hunters, I'm going to have to make a decision pretty darn soon because I got to get ahead of it. I don't want to be sitting around thinking about it or trying to get a campaign together. I want it ready to go when I'm done with Blood Hunters. Be careful here. I'm going to put some green in here for the, I keep knocking this camera. I want to put some green in here, but I don't want it to be really vibrant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the green on, and if it ends up looking too bright, then I'll just put some more brown over the top of it and dull it down, gray it down. Just like that. I think it'll look fine. You guys can't even see it, but I'll show you. Nighthawk Warrior Comics. Hi, everyone. How are you doing, Aaron Lopresti? Can you hire me for something in your comics? I can barely pay myself, Nighthawk, but hopefully someday I'll be able to operate more like a bigger company and have different artists working on stuff rather than just me. And Dino Palazzo says, Aaron needs to do closeout streams in the morning. I'm 78 freaking years old. Are you seriously that old, Andino? With the potty mouth you have and you're 78 years old, I don't believe it. By Sword and Hand says, damn, Aaron, that looks great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Nighthawk Warrior Comics says, hi, Aaron Lopresti. How are you doing today? What is this drawing about? This is about... this is my closeout stream for Wraith of God Second Chance #1, and I didn't want to just sit here and talk the whole time. I wanted to do something productive, and so I'm painting this while you guys, and then you guys can suffer through my sales pitches every 20 minutes or so. Glitch, do what Brian Pluto does and alternate. Yeah. Andino says, looks fantastic colored. Thank you, Andino. You're, look at how pleasant he is late at night. He must be tired. But I appreciate it. It's very nice. Thank you. I made the comment before, and I've talked to guys about this, that it's kind of weird that, I mean, here I am in my late 50s. We'll just leave it at that. And I think doing, at least as a writer, doing the best work of my career, but I never, when most guys are just, blowing it out of the water in their 20s and 30s, I didn't have the opportunity to unleash any of these IPs, right? So, whereas like, Frank Miller did, and now, people criticize his work now because it's not as good as when he was younger. And, I mean, how many good ideas does any one person have? But all my good ideas have been sitting on a shelf for 30 years, and I can finally get to do something with them. So I'm just, my opportunities are coming later in life. But that's fine, because I'd much rather be doing this right now than, you never know how much I mean, it's like when I was working in mainstream, that was like the coolest thing in the world. Oh, look, I'm drawing Spider-Man, or oh, I'm drawing the FF, or I'm drawing whatever. But now it's like after being away from that, you look at it and say, even if it wasn't just all woke, crazy stuff, you still kind of look at it and go, my gosh, I was drawing this stuff for 30 years. And you suddenly realize that this is so much more fun because it's your own stuff. And you don't care that you're not drawing that stuff anymore. And the reality is, of course, that no matter how great you are, John Byrne, Jack Kirby, a couple of examples, at some point, they're just not going to have any more use for you. And then what do you do, right? So if you didn't make huge money on royalties or something, you're kind of screwed. And so I'm glad that, I spent 30 years in mainstream, but now I'm getting to do this. And it's much harder work-wise, but, it's 100 times more rewarding. So, and I would hate to have had just stayed in comics because the paycheck was there, and then, either retired or got, booted completely out or whatever. And then, look back and said my entire life was drawing somebody else's characters, and I never did any of my own. To me, that would be kind of depressing. So this is kind of a cool opportunity in a lot of ways. Randy Howell has a very good point. Opportunities coming later in life is better than not at all. In fact, it could be more fulfilling. I think there's some truth in that, because I'm old enough to appreciate it now, at a level that maybe I wouldn't have been before. Because it was always about, we always wanted to get on a book working at Marvel or DC that sold really well, right? So people would notice you. And other than maybe Planet Hulk, and I guess Wonder Woman to a certain degree, although Wonder Woman was never really a big seller. It was just, a popular character like Legion is kind of popular, but never a really big seller. But I never worked on, Batman other than a few issues, or Superman, or any of the books that, were really big sellers. And so you were always chasing after that, right? And it's much more satisfying kind of doing your own thing, and at least doing it, or having enough success that you can keep doing it. Because I don't think there's anything that, I look at and sort of hang my hat on. Like I said, maybe Planet Hulk a little bit, And trying to think of, Justice League was fun, but I mean, it wasn't, it was sold about, I think the number one issue sold 60 some thousand copies, which, was good at the time, but certainly not, game changing. Ms. Marvel was an average selling book. Even Wonder Woman, when it was on, that was an average selling book. See, I'm still incorporating these browns over the top of the blue here on this rock to kind of keep everything in sort of a nice color harmony here, and yet still have it, be separated a little bit. So really the hottest color on here is her hair. You got to be careful if you go too intense with your colors, because they'll fight each other, right? You want to know, you've got to know where you want your focus to be. So I don't want these greens to be too green, because I don't want people looking at the grass. I mean, it's there, but your eye shouldn't be drawn to that because it's the bright green or something. So I'm going to knock it back a little bit with some more of this brown that we're using throughout the entire piece, which kind of creates this sort of color harmony to it. But I mean, there is some fun in getting, using some really bright, hot colors at times, but you got to know where to use them so that it helps work in, with the overall drawing. But again, so your attention's where it's supposed to be. But I've always been a bigger fan of muted colors, at least in, comic book art. If you're doing oil painting, it can, like, you can use richer colors just by the nature of the, the paint. But let's see, that's probably too brown now. I really want to get a gray out of there without using gray. So I'm just combining blue, which is a Prussian blue, which is sort of a gray blue, a darker blue, and putting it in with this brown and seeing if I can come up with sort of a kind of a faux stone look or something. It's interesting in real life, if you looked at stuff like this, the colors aren't all that different. Unless you're in a meadow with a bunch of just, beautiful blooming flowers. What really separates stuff is the values more than the color. That's why it's always a good idea to develop those values distinctions before you start laying color on. I, of course, didn't do it here, but again, you would, this could be just considered a glorified color study too. If I was going to do a bigger painting like this and say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do an oil painting of this, I wouldn't have put this much time into it, obviously, but this isn't much different than that, than doing a color study. So you know exactly what you want your finished product to look like. All right, so we got to get this knife, and I got to get this, I want to get this knife closer to looking like stone rather than tree bark. So I'm going to put a little more blue in there. There we go. Give it a little bit more. So now it's kind of a gray steel or stone look. I mean, they wouldn't have had steel, they would have stone, right? That they would carve to make these spearheads and the knives. color these beads. I'm just going to use the blue. I don't want to get too involved with that necklace up there, so I think I'll just go ahead and do the same thing up here. Just kind of touch it with a little bit of the light blue, just so it, it's a little bit different color than all the flesh tone and animal skin type stuff. As you can see, I haven't used that many colors really. I mean, this is really sort of an orange red sort of color scheme. The raw sienna here that I used, or pardon me, the burnt umber. Raw sienna is the one that's actually more green, but the burnt umber is still sort of in the red family, but it's just darker. So I haven't really got too crazy with my palette other than this blue. But because I'm using it so lightly, you don't really even hardly notice it. But it's complementary to orange anyway, so you can use those complementary colors. You just don't want them as intense as your primary colors. So if orange or red is my base color here, if I go in with a blue as a complementary color, it cannot be as intense as the flesh tone or the red hair, because then it's going to fight and it's going to be really uncomfortable. But if you knock it back and dilute it, it's still blue, but it's not offensive. And that's pretty much it. The question is, do I want to put a little? I'm going to, just for the sake of doing it. I may regret it, but put a little blue in the background, which I should have done to begin with. I know, but so I'm going to get my big brush and get some blue on here, but I'm not going to go heavy. Just want to kind of indicate it here. And again, it's me being wimpy, but if I don't do it heavy, I don't have anything to fix. I can always add to it. If I go too heavy, then I may have... See, normally if I was considering this, to be like a full finished painting or something, I would have put this blue down over everything before I even started. And then I would have painted over the top of it. And that helps you get your color harmony as well, because some of that blue is going to show through your flesh tones, but not like radically so. It's just going to be there as a hint. And it does help tie everything in together. I'm doing loose here. I want this to feel kind of spotty so that it breaks up here at the top as we get more into the white. And now that I've got it carried up this far, I'm going to have to bring some up here to kind of balance it, because I don't want this whole white thing and then a little bit of blue down here. Right? So I'm going to treat it more like a design element than necessarily background, actual background color. Okay, so I'm going to go like this. And I got some on her arms, and I got to fix that quick. Here we go. Get rid of that before it... And then just with a wet brush, I'll go in and kind of spot this so it, sort of feels like it's bleeding out into the white. So they are kind of creating a texture here. And now it looks like I meant to do it the whole time. which we all know is BS. I've got to be, let's see, I kind of diminished the effect of those beads around her neck, so I'm going to have to change the color a little bit. Okay, but there we go. So now you just kind of get a textured sky back there, right? And it's not intended to be anything more than an indication of atmosphere. It's not really supposed to be taken as a literal sky back there. It's just really a color design element to kind of create that texture and the sense that she's in an actual environment. A vignette is what we're creating here. That's a little darker than I would have liked, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Be careful here that I don't get in on that flesh tone. Ruin it. Slavic one says, what character is this? It's just a rando cave girl that I drew. Yes, a young Wilma Flintstone. Stephen, thanks for dropping in, man. I appreciate it. I know you. It's late, even here on the West Coast, 10:30 now. It's bedtime. Pretty cool. Not bud root saucy, but very alluring. Well, I don't want to lay the sauce on too thick. You know what I'm going to do with those beads? I'm going to take some yellow ochre. Okay, I didn't say Oprah. I said ochre. There it is right there. It's kind of a tannish yellowish kind of color. It's actually a really nice color. I like it a lot for a variety of things. Let me hit this with the hairdryer first. This background is very wet. There we go. Okay, what was I talking about? Oh, yellow ochre. Now I'll put this on pretty thick. There we go. So it kind of makes it a gray with a little bit of a yellow-orange tint to it, which, works well with her hair and her flesh tone too. I'm going to hit that over the top of that with a little bit of orange. There we go. Do that as well. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call good, wholesome fun. I am going to put some highlights in here now, and we'll see how that plays. Well, I'm going to put a little bit of violet in her eyeshadow here. Okay, just a tad. Okay, so I'm going to grab some white acrylic. I always end up using titanium white. So what I'll do is I'll drop out, just put out a blob on the paper. So I'm just using, I don't know who makes this. This is Blick. This is Blick brand. So it's like, it's as good as anything else. It's a little bit cheaper because it's Blick brand and not like Grumbacher or something, but it's pretty much the same stuff. I'm going to put a little bit of water in there because I don't want it too thick, but I kind of want it like sort of opaque, but not crazy opaque. So let's see. And then I can do that and put a highlight in there. Now it's going to reflect the light because it's opaque a lot more. But what I want to do here is maybe soften those edges just a little bit around that. So it's not like this. There we go. So it feels like it's a little bit more natural looking. See that? Yeah. And so then I just get a quick highlight in there, and got it. That blue that got on her shoulder has created a little bit of funkiness here that I need to eliminate. So once again, wetting my brush and just kind of pushing that over to the edge. It's magic. Okay, so I'm going to find spots on here that I think need just a little highlight to kind of round them out. And I'll do the same thing with the white acrylic that I've been doing here. So I want to get some highlight here. Her breastises. Again, I don't want it too hot, but just enough to lighten that area up. And when that dries, I can put a little bit of, I'm not going to wait for it to dry. I'm going to put a little bit thicker white on there, kind of dry brush it on there and try and scumble it on there. We'll see how it works. And kind of spot it like that so it feels like it's blending out. See how that works? So now we got this highlight on her shoulder that it's a very soft highlight, but it's very definite. And now we've got it right here on this on her boob. Okay, I don't know that. Maybe I'll put one like right in here. Let's see. It looks lighter on camera than it actually is. So let's see if I put a little bit of, okay, get the extra paint off there and then kind of work the edges to soften around so it's not just this big circular spot. There we go. Oh, I know what else I wanted to do. I wanted to go in on her kneecap because there's nothing here except color, and I really kind of like it to have a little bit of depth. So I'll go in and put a highlight there on her kneecap, and that will make that so it doesn't feel quite as flat. But see, the thing with the acrylic is once it dries, it's dry, dude, and you can't do anything about it. But what I can do is I can take some burnt sienna here. I'll get enough color on here so it's not too wet. Okay. Then I can come in here to the knee and kind of go over the next to that highlight. And that's going to give me a little darker area to separate that highlight from the black line there. Now, again, you can always, if you have the colors in acrylic that you have in watercolor, you can always go over the top of any mistakes and kind of doctor them up with the acrylic. I think that's going to give me what I want right there. That's really about it. I don't think I take that back. There's another spot I want to hit with the highlight right here. Okay, so put that paint down, then I'm going to kind of get the water off here and then kind of dry brush this around the edges again to kind of soften it so it feels like it's blending more in there. There we go. We got a little highlight there. I suppose I could probably put one on the... it's really easy to go highlight crazy, and I try not to do that, but sometimes I end up catching myself doing it. Just put a little bit of highlight there on this arm. You know. Excellent. I'm looking around here to make sure if there's any other spots I'm going to put a highlight on, like maybe this spear. Oh, you didn't? Did you see that? Yeah. So I put those two little white streaks there to create that highlight on there. By wetting this down a little bit, it makes it a little thinner. So some of that color will, even though it's opaque, if you put it on lightly like this, it'll let some of the color underneath kind of seep through. And then you don't have this bright white on there, but you have more of a, you know, a gray. So it doesn't become this kind of intense, obtrusive thing that your eye is drawn to, and you're like, look, that hot spot right there. It's going to help round out these beads a little bit. Put just a little highlight on the tip of her nose there. Okay. This is a pretty fun piece, pretty successful actually. I like this. I like how this came out. All right, let me switch here. Reenie's trying to destroy Aaron. It's true, but we're holding strong. We're still we're up around 80. We're 80 some. We're now at 64. That's still pretty good. Been on for almost 2 hours, and so we're kept in a strong crowd, especially for late at night. So I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. I don't know if that's true, but I'll take it. Thank you, GJ. It's very kind. Glitch says, got to head off to work. Good luck with the closeout, Ayla. Hey, man, thank you. Must be working a night shift, huh? I appreciate you stopping by, man. Appreciate the support. Thank you. Tarks9 agrees with GJ. Thank you so much. Aldion, look at that. Those touch-ups are like adding salt to fries. Isn't it, though? You know, it's an amazing thing, especially if you're doing oil painting. It looks very, very flat. And a lot of times you work dark to light, right? In painting, most guys do. Loomis didn't. But in watercolor, you work from light to dark. But in oil painting, you work dark to light. And it looks flat, it looks flat, it looks flat. And then you drop in those highlights and everything comes alive and it becomes this, this rounded figure with volume and stuff. It's amazing, but you have to stay with it to get to the point where you're dropping those highlights in, and suddenly it's coming alive because it looks really flat and dead until you get to that last stage, which is the highlights that give it that three-dimensional quality that you're trying to capture. So, oh, glitches in Europe. How about that? Oh yeah, Roquefort's nuts, man. I love that guy's stuff. Glitch says 6:45 a.m. here. Okay. All right. Well, that'll be about then I'll be rolling out of the sack about 7 a.m. I've been sleeping in for like months. It's the weirdest thing. And I always, I lose too much of the day and I still feel like a slog. And so I started getting up this week at 7 a.m. and just going right to work. And then like after about 2 hours having breakfast or something. And I've gotten so much done this week. It was amazing. So I'm like, that's my new go-to. And but now it's like I'm so freaking tired because I got up at 7 and this whole thing about I'd be like staying up till midnight or 1 a.m. and then sleeping in until 9 or 9:30 has just not been working for me. So I'm switching up, but it's going to be rough tomorrow morning. I don't know if I'm going to stay up till midnight or not. You know what? Let me get I need a little color on these fingers. There's a little too much white there. This little shadow in there. Okay. I'm really liking how this came out. It's always a crapshoot, man. You just never know. But so now what we have left here is a basic orange-blue complementary painting, right? Now you'll see what I do with the blue, and I know it doesn't read particularly well, but it's not that far off from what I'm seeing on my painting live here, but or in as I sit here. But the orange is your main color. This is where I want you looking, right? So the blue is here as a complementary, which works really well to set off the orange. But if this blue was super, super dark, it would be fighting with the orange in her hair. So it is a matter of controlling your values with your color so that it works and it's comfortable to look at. I remember very early on when I was really kind of exploring painting, I tried to do a John Carter of Mars painting, and I had this really intense red sky, but then I had this grass that they were on that was green, and the green was as intense as the red. And man, it was a very uncomfortable painting to look at. And it wasn't until I actually started taking some color theory and actually took some painting classes from an old timer from commercial artist who just happened to be in the Portland area, and he was really actually quite good. He knew his stuff, and started getting an understanding of how to, really control your values and understand where you're supposed to be looking and how to control that color so it's not too intense, or it's intense where you want it to be, but it's kicked back or pushed back, I should say, where you want it to be. And it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference once you get an understanding of that. And then it's just a matter of getting control of the medium that you're working in to get it to do what you want it to do. But understanding and knowing what you're attempting to do from a value standpoint and a color standpoint is so important. The most important thing is always drawing, right? If you don't have a good drawing, I don't care how good the painting is over the top of it, it's going to look like crap. But beyond that, it's understanding how color works. I'm not like this brilliant color theory guy, but I mean, I have a rudimentary understanding of how it works, and then understanding values is so important. And once you do that, and being someone that's worked in black and white my whole life, all I do is work in values. So that translates really, really well to painting. And then it just becomes a matter of getting a grip on your materials, so you understand how they work and getting them to do what you want them to do. And that's just practice. That's just using them. Let me see if I switch to the FaceTime camera. Look why is it so dark in here? I mean, I realize it's nighttime, but still, I got 3 lights on me, and I still look like I'm sitting in the shadows. It's got to be this camera. Life and technology, man, it's just like a freaking struggle, at least for me. I usually light stuff up. I don't know. But anyway, so let's take a look and see if this looks any more accurate here. The blue's a little darker than what you're seeing, but it's not very intense. It's just kind of a feeling of that blue back here. It's very, again, I used Prussian blue, I think, yeah, which is a very kind of a steel blue, a little bit of grayish blue. So it's not a real intense blue, which I did not want, because we want our attention obviously to be on the girl. But I'll scan this and post it on social media, so you'll get a true sense of the color. But that's pretty close. I mean, what you're seeing here is pretty accurate to what's on the page, especially the blue's a little bit darker in the original, or in real life, or whatever I'm trying to say. But everything else is pretty close there. Excellent. How about that? We did a painting. Travis, I've got some. It depends on what size you want. I don't have any white ones. I've got a bunch of mediums. That was a mistake. And so they're replacing those with, guys, like 4 larges. People are sitting waiting for their larges to come in. But I have green ones. I think I have XLs. I may have a 2 or 3X. I'm not sure. You have to tell me what size, and then I can check for you. If you message me on either Facebook, or Twitter, or even Instagram, whatever you're on, or you can email me at Aaron at aaronlopresti.com, and tell me what size shirt, and I may have them. Am I going to sell that in an art auction? I don't know if I am or not. I will sell it, but I may just put a price on it, or take an offer that I think is reasonable, and just sell it. So I don't know that it's going up in an auction, because the only auction I do regularly is graybeards, and that's only pieces that we did on the show. So this will go in the portfolio. It'll probably go with me to San Diego, and I'll sell it there. Or if someone contacts me like yourself, and I would certainly sell it. Yeah, it does look a little bit different. And when I scan it, that'll be the closest as to what it really is going to look like. And like I said, I'll post it on Instagram, Facebook. Well, the Instagram will be a photograph, so it's still not going to be 100% accurate, because watercolors tend to photograph lighter than they actually are. But the scan will be pretty close to right on. Travis says he'll do that. Okay, well, thank you, Travis. Hopefully we've got a size that will work for you. Daniel Russell's like, wow, are you still up, Aaron? Well, usually I'm in bed at 11, so I'm getting close. DJ Martinez, and this came out superb. Wow, thank you. Squibs looks so good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Well, I can't tell you how many books I bought because of the cover art. That's all I ever did. I got, where are they? I got a ton of paperbacks. I got all the Doc Savage books that James Bama did the covers for, and I've read like 3. I've got like Frazetta covered books back there. Um, just I would sit there as a kid in bookstores. Those were things where stores where you used to go inside and they'd have books you could buy. Um, when I was a kid, and I'd go to the paperback rack and I would just stare at the Frazetta covers. And it was like you felt like, if I read this book, all this great art on the cover is going to be inside, and it isn't, right? But your imagination is there, I suppose. But man, there was that's all I would do. And album covers too. I'd go and it was really tough. If there was a group you wanted to get and they had a suck album cover, it was really tough to buy it. But it was real easy to buy a band that maybe you hadn't even heard of that had a great album cover, right? Let's see. Aldion says, if Aaron drew the cover for a heavy metal album, I would buy it for the art alone, thinking this is amazing. This has to be good. Well, Wrightson did a Meatloaf album cover, and so did Richard Corbin. So those were cool. And of course, Molly Hatchet was using all those Frazetta paintings for their album covers, which were, that makes you just want to buy, because those album covers, of course, were huge, right? They're this big. So you have this great big piece of artwork that, was on the sleeve of the album. Let me pull up. I've shared this before, but this is the one book that as a kid caught my eye, and it was all because of the where the heck's the painting? It was all because of the painting on the cover. There we go. It's kind of beat up, but it doesn't affect the painting. Drum roll, please. Right there. Edgar Rice Burroughs, Back to the Stone Age. First of all, you got this huge mammoth coming, bursting through these trees. Look at those twisted, gnarly things back here. These, look at the, this crazy vegetation going on here. And then, you got a guy's butt there, but look at this elbow right there, just the weight and the volume this arm and forearm has. That vein right there is great. The hair swooping like through here. I saw this and I loved it. I bought this book and I read it, and it was pretty fun, but I wouldn't have bought it if it hadn't been for this cover. So if I had all the money in the world, this is the painting I would buy from Frazetta. Out of all of his paintings, this is the one. Actually, I have that poster up on my wall over there. You used to be able to get, well, you still can because they're still selling them, but Frazetta used to be able to buy these Frazetta prints, right? And they're, this big or whatever for like $3 a piece, and they would send them to you. And of course, they weren't signed by Frazetta, but, JG Martinez says, we need a Lopresti coloring book. I'll back it or buy it directly. That was the first thing I was going to do before I even did Wraith of God. And all my friends were saying, don't do a coloring book. Are you kidding me? Put your property out there. And I went, okay. Because I was scared. It was like watercoloring again, right? It was like, it's kind of want to put my toe in the water of crowdfunding on something that I don't need a huge amount of money to actually produce. And, but they talked me into doing a comic book project, and that became Wraith of God. So the coloring book is back there on the shelf for the time being. Aldion says, I've got a Frank Frazetta tattoo on my arm. Which one? Molly. Okay, this is Molly Hatcher's. Wrightson also did a cover for the death metal band Obituary. I didn't know that. I'm kind of a classic rock guy. I've never been into metal. Um, which is that's what cracks me up about Dale, man. Dale Keown. He's such a metalhead. But I'm more classic rock, and I really eclectic tastes in music. I could tell you stuff that would make you puke that I like, and then other stuff you'd go, yeah. So I went and with my daughter when she was home at um, for spring break, we went and saw a laser light show with Pink Floyd's The Wall. That was really cool. And they used to do it at midnight when I was in high school. I mean, that's how long they've been doing it around here. We had a planetarium over by the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, and they used to do every midnight, or pardon me, every weekend at midnight. They would do like Saturday night, or it was either Friday or Saturday night. I think it was Saturday night. They would do what they call Laser Floyd, and it was um, the Dark Side of the Moon. So they've been doing it since before I was in high school, and but then they quit doing it at midnight. It was like 7 p.m. or whatever. But I made sure I took my son when he was in junior high or high school to go see it, and then my daughter to go see it. And my daughter, she likes classic rock because that's all we ever listened to in the studio. When she was in here, we'd just be watching videos on YouTube of classic rock. Aldion says, "Do you like Judas Priest?" And I said, "I used to." When I was in junior high, but I kind of, I mean, some of their songs are all right. But I kind of fell away from it. I used to be a big Hendrix fan, and I'm not so much anymore. I don't know why. Um, but I like the Who. I love the Who. Um, Alvin Lee, 10 years after. Um, but then I also like Journey, which is more of a, bubblegum rock. And then Kiss, I like some of Kiss, and they're garbage rock. So it's like, I mean, I just, I'm all over the place. I can't be trusted. I like good stuff, and I like not so good stuff. There you go. Green Laser. All in all, you're just another brick in the wall. Neil Adams' Thin Lizzy cover. That's right. Was that on Jailbreak? I think it was, wasn't it? That Neil Adams did the album cover for that. I like Thin Lizzy. ZZ Top, like old ZZ Top, I mean, like 70s ZZ Top, like Tush and LaGrange and things like that. I had this great ZZ Top album. I think I bought in 78, maybe 77. Half the album was studio and half of it was live. That was pretty cool. Art to Bear will be offended by your kiss off of Kiss. I like Kiss, but I recognize, I mean, come on. Is there a meaningful lyric in any song they've ever written? Let me think. No, but it's fun. Journey's on its 50th anniversary tour right now. My 21-year-old daughter, went and saw Journey and Toto. I mean, how old are those guys? I mean, I know Neil Sean is still playing for Journey, but obviously, what's his face? Lead singer isn't anymore. But the funny thing is, the guy his replacement singer is probably old now too, because he's been doing it for so long. What bands had their own comic book other than Kiss? I don't know. Beth, I hear you calling. Look, Green Laser got the lyrics wrong. Beth, I hear you crying. No, it's here. I hear you calling. But I can't come home right now. Detroit Rock City was meaningful. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. Look at that. I bless the rains down Africa. That song I like that song from Toto, but those lyrics make no sense. King Diamond and Cannibal Corpse. I've heard Aldeon, man, you are a rocker because I have not of course we're different generations though too, but I've never heard of King Diamond and Cannibal Corpse. Maybe King Diamond, but I have not heard of Cannibal Corpse. Aldeon, Kiss never did anything for me. I don't doubt that. Anybody that says, "Oh, I hate Kiss" or whatever, it's like, yeah, I can understand why. But they were sort of like when I was a kid, like they became sort of prominent when I was in junior high. I mean, their first album was like I think '74 was the self-titled Kiss album, followed up by Hotter Than Hell in '75. Or maybe it was 73 that they debuted, and then 74 was Hotter Than Hell. I don't remember. But it wasn't until Dress to Kill, which was 76, I think, or 75, that we started like going, oh, this is, because that had I Want to Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day. But then they came out with Kiss Alive. And that was the album, right? Kiss Alive. And my mom thought I was out of my mind. What is this crap you're bringing home? But we were all just rocking to Kiss, man. That was in junior high. And then Destroyer was like, this great album. But then, like everything else, I, moved on. But I still look back fondly. King Diamond was in the band Merciful Fate. See, man, that's just like, I quit. Seriously, man. I stopped listening to music like in the 80s, late 80s. I just, I tuned out and I just went back to classic rock. And that's all I've listened to most of my entire life is 70s stuff. So I don't, anything new that comes out, it's like, I'm just not listening to it. So I like to live in my youthful past. Well, gentlemen, it's 11 o'clock. Let's check the old campaign and see what we've got here. Mm-hmm. All righty. Survey says, holy smokes, look at that. $196 away from $11,000. I am now in the red. Oh, wait a minute. I'm in the black on this now by about $500. Well, I got to pay my designer about $300. So, yay. I was afraid I was going to lose money on this, but I'm just a few $100s ahead, and that's where I want to stay, is ahead. Yeah, but I mean, everybody like buys music now off of, download it off Apple or whatever, iTunes. I mean, does anybody buy even CDs anymore? I mean, everything comes down off of downloads, don't they? And then we were buying CDs, when they made the switch, it was like suddenly you're buying something that's like this big instead of something that's like this big. I used to love going to album stores and just flipping through the albums. It was like going to a comic book store with music. And then you'd always smell the pot coming from the back room, right? Behind the beaded curtains. There you go. Daniel Russell's like, what are these CDs you speak of? No, you're right. I agree. And the thing is, when I buy comics now, I don't read them. I collect them for condition. So, and I remember I was this guy that put on a show was in Minnesota, and his girlfriend, we went out to dinner, and his girlfriend's like, I don't understand you guys. You buy these comics, but you don't read them. What's the point? And I said, well, it's kind of like collecting large stamps. You collect a really high grade cover you like or whatever. And then if you want to read it, you go get the Marvel Essentials or the reprint someplace. but you don't mess with the comic. And the album's the same way, although you can listen to the album, but if you're buying it for the art, that's just one image. Starship Records and tapes. Geek Hero Bubba says is still like that pot and beaded curtains as well. Yeah, except pot's not illegal anymore. It was when I was a kid. There's Aldion saying it's partially an investment. I totally agree, man. Daniel Russell says he stopped collecting comics. He only buys to read now. Well, I quit buying new ones. Like I sold everything that was post 1980. With the exception of just a couple books that maybe I like, like Alan Davis or something that has some art in it that I like. All my books are pre 1980. And I wasn't even, when I was working at Marvel in DC, I wasn't really reading anything. I was just working on the stuff I was working on. Galdeon, I can't do pot. I'm allergic to it. Good for you. There you go. That's a good excuse. Have you gotten any more back issues of Captain Marvel? No, other than 7. I don't know if I probably did a video on it. I don't remember, but I did a video on I bought that Captain Marvel number 7 and it was totally wrecked because of the really crappy packaging. Well, my son for a Christmas present got me a near mint copy of 7. It was almost kind of a joke gift, here's a replacement for you. And but I haven't gone back and gotten any more because I've been buying some higher end stuff. And when you do that, it's like your money gets tied up for several months into like purchasing one book. I'm doing that right now. I won't tell you what it is because it's a golden age book. But I will do an opening when I get it, but I got to pay it off first. Slavic one says, are you going to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? I am, unless it gets really bad reviews. And that will be the end of my Marvel Disney viewing. Cause I kind of feel like that's sort of the tail end of, I like Chris Pratt, and I thought those movies were, I think the first one's great. I think the second one is bloated, but still entertaining enough. And so I'm, if they're going to end it and it's at least gets decent reviews, I'll probably go see it. I just went and saw John Wick number 4. That was was something else, man. It was just it was like cartoon violence at a level that I've never experienced before. I found it very entertaining, but about as deep as a pollywog pond. Not much there, but it was entertaining. Aldion says, the comics I buy, I read. The records I buy, I listen to. Yeah, but I'll bet you take really good care of those records so you don't scratch them, right? Custom God said, did you ever shop it For What It's Worth in Beaverton? Heck yeah, I did. Right down there on Canyon Boulevard. Yeah, absolutely, I did. We would go, they used to have like, they had a poster rack in there too with the albums. And so you could get like rock and roll posters, but they all had some funky 70s art posters too, like Roger Dean, who did like a lot of the Yes album covers, stuff like that, stuff that, people into rock and roll posters would dig. I never touched the grooves of the records. Good for you. Yeah, see, because you got to be careful of the records, just like a comic book. If you read the comic book, you bend a page or whatever, and you don't want to scratch your album because then you can't listen to it, right? It ruins the listening experience. GJ Martinez says, John Wick 4 was amazing. Action from beginning to end. It was just nuts. It was so over the top. Geek Hero Bubba says, I couldn't do it. I buy comics and I read them. I used to do that, when I was a kid and even older in college and young adult, I was still reading comics. I just don't read them that much anymore. Once you start working on them, it becomes this sort of, I don't know. I'm a workaholic, and it's like, it's really hard for me to like take time to do something other than draw, because I always feel like, oh, I should be working on this. I got to get this done. There's always something that needs to get done. So unless I'm like doing stuff I have to do, like mow the lawn or make dinner or whatever, I'm drawn, so it's hard for me to sit down in a chair and say, I'm going to take an hour and read this, because I keep thinking, well, I'm reading this, I could have drawn, a panel, so. Are there 10-0 graded comics? Theoretically, they are, but you rarely see them. Usually 9.8s are about as high as you get, but I have seen a couple 10s. I've got to figure out. Oh, let me show you guys something. I'm thinking about it. I'm doing some new prints, and let's see what you guys think of this one. Is it going to open up for me? There we go. Let me make this bigger before I share it. Okay, here we go. All right, so we'll leave the campaign, but come back and visit it later. Okay, did I lighten up? I think I lightened up a little bit. No, maybe not. Okay, here we go. How about that? Yeah. I don't know that a girl in the snow would be dressed like that. Probably be pretty cold, but hey, whatever. Look at me. I killed another Yeti. Freya of the Ice Kingdom, huh? How about that? So that's another character I have that I want to do something with at some point. But anyway, so I want to get away from doing prints of like Spider-Man and Captain America and whatever, and get my own stuff, properties out there in print form. So this is going to be a new print that I'll have by the end of this month, actually. Daniel Russell for $1.99. Thank you, sir. Congrats on not losing money. Who inks Nightclub? I'm not telling you. You'll have to wait till the book comes out. Yeah, let's see. Green Laser says, no, you would think so, but they basically have to have 0 flaws, even printing flaws. You're talking about a 10.0. Travis Patrick says, awesome. GJ Martinez, laugh out loud. I don't think Aaron wants to say who yet. No, I'm not going to. Let's see. The Fur Bikini Collection by Aaron Lopresti. There you go. So yeah, that's one print. The John Carter piece that was going to be in my coloring book, I'm going to color that up and use it as a print too. Let me pull that out and I'll show that real quick so you guys know of what I speak if you don't remember or you haven't seen it yet. Man, I've got a lot of indie cover art in here. Next time Ethan has a sale, I'm going to put up some of this stuff. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. Now, see, I've already made a print of this, which I kind of like. It never really sold all that well, but I kind of like this piece. Actually, I like it a lot. Very Wrightson-y. I'm going to reissue all my Kit Carter prints too, because I'm completely sold out of all of those. Here we go. So I'm going to color this, and this will be 11 by 17 print. Oops. Anyway, it goes like that. So that's going to be one of them. Then I want to do I'm going to do a Wraith of God and Esther print. It's going to be black and white, but it's going to be on like a tan sort of textured paper, so it kind of feels like an Old West, type poster or something. Daniel Russell says it's 2 a.m. here, so peace out, mofos. Well, such language. All right. Have a good night, Daniel. Thank you so much for joining us, man. Appreciate it. An Aaron book where a Conan-esque hero mainly fights monsters would be cool. All right. Let me show you something. This is old artwork, so it's going to be redone, but let's see here. So this is a property I had called Primal Zone. Now the robot that's in this is no longer in the story because I ended up using him in Power Cubed. But this is and you can see I kind of went for a little bit of Frazetta take on this. Oops. Okay, so you've got jungle action, but it got some tech stuff, some retro tech stuff in it. And this is called Primal Zone. And but you can see this guy's face, the shading. This is very Frazetta-like here. And this figure's pretty cool. This chick's figure here, I like that a lot. This is very Steranko-esque storytelling device here, where you've got a single action continuing over several panels. Let's see. So basically, this guy's a kind of a soldier of fortune, and this weird scientist guy who created this interdimensional portal sends him through to see if there's anything on the other side, and well, there's stuff on the other side. You can see this old sort of EC looking machinery back here. I did this in 96, I think. Again, this sort of heavy shadow on him is very Frazetta-esque. So anyway, we see that the T-Rex gets shot by some laser. Some of these panels I would recreate and use. I'd have to change the story, like I said, because the robot isn't in the comic anymore, which you'll see in a minute. I love that right there. This one, that figure and face just works really well for me. So anyway, then we get the there's the robot, but anybody that's read Power Cube knows, it goes, wait a minute, that robot's in Power Cubed. Yes, he is. So he's no longer in this series. And again, up here at the top, you can see the Frazetta shading on the face and stuff. So I was really going for, this kind of Frazetta look. Then we've got You guys are getting the whole 8-page story right here. And then, so what you've got is this like dinosaur planet, but you have this people living, like the elites living up in this little city. And then you've got, so it's like this Roman civilization up here, but with high tech stuff. And so then here you've got this guy, his face is half machine. He's simply called the ruler. And he's got this old witch who's works for him, who looks very much like the old witch from EC. She's kind of like, his little advisor, sees the future, whatever. And so he's the nemesis who's trying to kill our heroes. And so yeah, it's funny when I did this 8-page story because when I was in Studio Source, the studio we had in Portland, Oregon, back in the 90s, I convinced everybody we should do this anthology book. And I took it pretty seriously. So obviously I did this entire 8-page story, and it was going to go in the anthology book. And then I was like, the more I thought about it, I was like, if I do a dinosaur story, jungle story, it's going to be a dead end, right? So that's when I came up with Power Cubed, which is a more sort of modern sci-fi adventure humorous book that I thought would have a much better chance of succeeding. And so then this got shelved and never got published. So there it sits. So I might run it as a backup at some point, just kind of, so I can get it in print. But I've had to remake the concept just a little bit. Like I said, I had to remove the robot. But that's really the only thing, because the scientist sends the guy, the soldier of fortune, through, but he gives him all this tech stuff, and there's a robot he takes with him to help him. And I'll just get rid of the robot, and he's on his own. So it'll be fine. Squib says, please print that. Run it, Aaron. I'll buy one. All right. Well, it's only 8 pages. So, JB Kirby says, Aaron, it's really good work. Really is. Thank you. Hey, GJ Martinez says, hey, Aaron, didn't you show a page you did of tech stuff and it had a villain in it, kind of Brainiac looking character? I'm trying to remember. No. I mean, I did a nightclub story, but it was called The Creeps at the time, and then I had to change the name because someone else had already done Creeps. Let me see. What would you have seen? Brainiac looking cover. I did a Justice League double page spread print. There was a commission for a guy that had a ton of DC characters and had Brainiac in it. I don't know if that's what you're thinking of. You may be thinking, you're thinking of Power Cubed. That's what you're thinking of, is Power Cubed, because Power Cubed had this Nazi scientist who was like, had saved like a brain. Now, I won't tell you whose brain it was. That's a spoiler. But yeah, and he wanted the kid with the Power Cube to create a robot thing that he could put the brain in. I think that's probably what you're thinking of. It had some tech in it, as much as you can get out of me. There's How to Draw Comics by Dan Lawless. I like Howdy. I think I'll adopt that rather than Hail. There you go. Dan, what are you doing up this late, man? You're like in Chicago or something. That's got to be like 1:30 a.m., right? Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's funny, and I don't know. I don't know if I should take credit for it or not, but it seems like a lot of people, once they've seen the success of Wraith of God, are suddenly doing Westerns now. So I don't know. It may just be coincidence. Dan says 2:30 in the morning in Michigan. Look at you go, man. Get to bed. Aldion says, I don't know if I got Power Cube. Do I want a copy of it? I don't know if there's any left. Let's check the old campaign trail and see, because I've got a few copies. Let me check. Okay, let's see. There's a few copies on the, nope, they're sold out. I'll tell you what you can do. If you go to Amazon, I think there's a few copies floating around on Amazon that aren't too expensive if you want to check out Power Cube. But it's basically, you can do two things. It was a mini series from Dark Horse, so you can go like on eBay or whatever, and you can probably get them for nothing. You can get there's just 4 issues. Or you can get the trade paperback on Amazon if there's still any available. Because this was like 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago now. They published it through Dark Horse, and then they did a trade. I bought as many trades as I could from them, but and sold them on the campaigns, but they're sold out because I didn't have that many numbers. I still got Garbage Man trades, but I don't have any more Power Cubed. Green Laser says they were sold out. Okay. GJ Martinez says, yep, 1:30 a.m. here in Texas. That's mail-in territory. What did I miss? Oh, Michigan, yeah. Power Cubed is just, I think it's pretty funny. It got really good reviews for those few people that actually read it, but it was probably a project I should have done through Image. Dark Horse wasn't necessarily the right publisher for it. But it's, it's sci-fi action adventure humor. So once again, a multi-genre thing, which I tend to do. Throwing as many genres as I can get away with. Yeah. So as I said, that's the best way to get it. It's on Amazon, probably through a secondhand store, but they're not that expensive. And then if you can find them, or you can get the comics, although the print run, I think, was like 5,000 is all. So, I mean, it did not do well at all. I was very disappointed. You want to talk about a rude awakening, because I was at DC at the time when I was doing this over at Dark Horse, and just kind of in my spare time. And I thought, well, my name's worth probably 15 to 20,000 copies. No. So it was kind of humbling, but it's pretty good. It's fun. I think you'd enjoy it. Whether or not I'll ever do any more, I don't know. I mean, it's like I said, I've got so many IPs. It's kind of like you got to pick the ones you think are going to be most successful. But I also think this plan of using them as backup stories in Wraith of God books is the best way to go. So you guys will get a sampling of all these types of things. Aldion, thanks for the heads up. Aaron just ordered my copy. Oh, great. Okay, found one. There you go, GJ Martinez. Go over to Amazon and grab your copy for probably like $14. I mean, they're probably pretty cheap. Better to be humbling than bumbling, he says, and that's so true. Oh, gentlemen. Let me take one last look at the I don't know. Should I hang out till midnight? I guess I might as well. It's just only 35 more minutes, right? The heck. I got nothing to do but sleep. Let's see here. We're still at 10,870. It's not that I'm complaining. 167 backers. My goal is to get to 150 backers, and we got to 167. So that's awesome. Oh, got a few backers on Blood Hunters too. Thank you very much for that. 2180. Excellent. There you go, JG Martinez. I just bought it, Aaron Power Cube. Excellent. You guys let me know when you read it. Let me know what you think. Travis Parrick just got a used copy on Amazon. They're all over the place, man. I thought it had the best chance of being turned into like an animated show or something, and so that's kind of why I went with it. I think Wraith of God would be like a good like Netflix series or something, but I'm not holding my breath. So we've got what do we got? 24 minutes till the end. Let me. I was going to do one other thing. Maybe it'll take me 24 minutes to do it. It'll just be perfect timing. Let me put away my Primal Zone pages. But I wanted to go through some of my sketchbooks, which you guys might find interesting. Because what I used to do a lot, not so much anymore. I'm like, I mean, I still do it, but not to the degree that I did it before. Was if I had an idea for something, whether it's a, just an illustration or a concept or something, I'd do a quick sketch in my sketchbook so that I wouldn't forget it, right? And come back and revisit it. Well, I've done that, but there's a lot of stuff I have not revisited. So, and I need to go through this stuff and kind of figure out what are some of the concepts that I can do something with, and one of the ones that are just sort of like dead ends. And this isn't all my sketchbooks, but it's some. I'm not going to make you look at everything, but there's a couple good ones here I want to flip through. Okay, let me do this. Of course, remind everybody that's still hanging in there that the reason I'm doing this live stream is closing out Wraith of God Second Chance. And we have 24 minutes before it's over. So like I would here's a Kit Carter concept strip. Oops, sorry. And I'd write down the gags and all the whole thing in here. So look at this. Here's some Kit Carter pieces that never got finished. But there were ideas that popped into my head, and I'm like, okay, draw it. There's some more Kit Carter. Let me do this. These things are in my way. This is another IP that I have called the Warriors of the Light. It's kind of a weak title, so that's still under construction. I was trying to come up with a poster concept for a convention I was doing in Dortmund, Germany. This is one that I wanted to turn into like a print or something, and I never got around to it. Now something similar to this I did turn into a print. It's a nice cone end piece I was going to do something with and never got around to doing it. There's a piece that I actually turned into a print. It was a Nouveau. I don't know if we need this light. Let's see. No, we don't. Okay. This got turned into a Batman print with a Rogues Gallery. And it's only part of all the villains that ended up in there. There's another interesting piece with a girl in the tree and a sword sticking in there. I thought might be something interesting, and I just never finished it. This was a print idea. Like this little girl sitting on a log in the woods, reading like a story to all these, monsters or fantasy characters. They're just kind of on their edge of their seat, waiting to, she's, using her hands to, tell the story and everything. I thought it might be kind of cute. I was going to do that as a painting, but, There's Red Riding Hood. Now these are I've got greeting cards. You guys probably don't even know that. I have a line of greeting cards. I haven't put them out on the market for a while, but this was a get well soon card. That was a concept, but I didn't use it. The werewolf concept. These were all monster cards and stuff. This one I did. This is a congratulations card. I never finished it. This was actually the illustration I used in the card. It was said something like "I'm stuck on you." I can't remember. And a little card to lift your spirits. So I have all these in greeting cards. I just haven't. I got to put them back up on my website. Kind of fun. There's a lot of garbage in here. Let me see. I want to show you the good stuff. There we go. That's the birthday card. I sold a lot of these. It said, happy birthday. And you opened it up and it said, when do we eat? I do a lot of just like weird head sketches and stuff just for my own entertainment value. Here we go. This was the card said, congratulations, you rock. And this is the one I can't keep in stock either. I got to go back to the printer on that one. This is some monsters, dragon type stuff. I think I used this in my Metamorpho miniseries. In fact, I know I did. This creature. There's a watercolor I was just farting around in here with. Never finished it. This was another card, and it was like, it was like you're really old. A happy birthday. Don't worry, you still have a few more left, kind of thing. But I don't know. I had a friend pass away shortly after I came up with this, and I thought, do I really need to be joking about death? So I never made the card. But I still think it's kind of a good idea. Just, Another Conan piece. I don't think I ever did anything with that. It's another monster sketch for I used in Metamorpho. Okay, now we're back to the kit card. We're trying to come up with a poster design for this Dortmund Comic-Con. They invited me out and I said, well, you got to bring my wife. I'm not coming to Europe without my wife. And they're like, well, we can't really afford, to bring her too. And I said, well, what if I, did some artwork for your show in exchange for her plane ticket? And they were like, okay. So I ended up designing a poster for them, and they used it for the show. I don't know if that sketch is in here or not. There's this another giant troll. There's a Santa Claus Christmas card. I got this from my dad because my dad would always say, I'm going on a diet right after the holidays. Of course, you know, there's always another holiday coming up, right? So that, I think that says, remember your diet starts after the holidays. It's kind of Merry Christmas. Remember your diet starts after the holidays. So there's another card. These robots, I think I used in the Justice League comic. There we go with another attempt at trying to figure out a Kit Carter thing for the Dortmund show. What else we got in here? This is the cover to my sketchbook called Illegal, and it had just a bunch of villains' headshots in it. And of course, his Black Cat, and that was on the cover. Let's see here. A super cartoony version of my daughter for kicks. Okay, here's another concept for the Dortmund poster that I didn't end up using. Kane, Uncle Creepy, the Old Witch. Never finished that. Here we go. This is what I ended up doing for the poster for the Dortmund Comic-Con. So we had this, and he wanted like these like stone figures in the background that sort of resembled the skyline of Dortmund. And so yeah, so I did something similar to this. That's not what I ended up doing exactly, but it was something similar to this. There's just another goofy face I did. Spent way too much time on for no other reason to entertain myself. Look at that. Portrait of Shelley at 50 years old. We should all look so good, I said, and it's true. So that's not Shelley, nor is it me. Let's see. This was another greeting card. I'm trying to think of what was on the inside of it. I did a lot of like monster cards and really sort of off-color sort of humor. What did that say? It was a thank you card, I think. Yeah, I think it was a thank you card. So that's another one that I've got. But yeah, I've got like 12 or 13 cards in this set. But I only sell them for like $2.50 a piece. So it's kind of like, it's just like nickel and diming yourself to death. And it was just like, so I got to sell them as a set. You know, you get all 12 cards. I used to do a lot of sketchbooks that were, pamphlet sized sketchbooks. And a lot of that art is in this book. It's my daughter. She would like come in and pose and she'd go, okay, and I'd put a giant bird on my arm, or something. So she's 21 now, but cowboy turtle. There we go. So that ended up being in one of my sketchbooks. I mean, I would draw specific drawings to go in the sketchbooks. It's one of my favorites. That was the cover to Saved from the Trash, which is available on Wraith of God Blood Hunters, I think. Frog Soup. So this was all stuff I did specifically to put in sketchbooks. That was on the title page on Saved from the Trash. Some pencil drawings. That was on the title page, I think, of Saved from the Trash. Yeah. Charlton Heston from Planet of the Apes. Dr. Zaius from Planet of the Apes. Nice little mammoth there. It was a fun little drawing. Always liked this one. That one I liked as well. I think that was on the back cover of that sketchbook. Another mammoth. It's a goblin thing. I don't know if that ended up in the sketchbook or not. It might have. Don't know what I was thinking there. There we go. There's another piece for the sketchbook. I think I did that for my daughter because she's been she still is a dancer, but she was like, ballet. And so I did that as a joke for her, a T-Rex in a ballet tutu. I don't think I ever did anything with this. That's kind of funny. Wonder Woman in armor. That would actually be pretty cool, but didn't finish it. Frog drawings. Ethan would appreciate that. Some more Kit Carter stuff. Had some sort of Conan thing going on here. Didn't finish it. Another Conan piece. Finished. Troll. There we go. That you saw a painting earlier of that. That was the original pencil drawing for the Hamburger Giant. Some more weirdos. This was character designs for when I was doing Justice League, the New 52. I don't think we ended up using, this was a Dan Jurgens character, but I don't think we ever ended up using her. Then Rocket Red. Actually designed these guys. These guys actually appeared in the comic. They got these little lava rock guys went after Batman and Booster Gold. There's Vixen, right? So that was a redesign of her costume. This is a giant robot sentinel thing that was in the book. Klepto, yeah, that was Dan Jurgens' character, but we ended up not using her because she looked too much like Donna Troy. So I did this for my daughter, Dancer Girl versus Meek the Hairy Troll. Oh my gosh. Good times. Good times. My first version of the pizza troll, but I thought it was too predictable, so that's when I made him that lumpy cheese thing. What else I got in here? Anything? Yeah, that was the pencil drawing for the Ice Cream Dragon. I also did a painting of that. It's somewhere over there. Again, that was for the children's book. It never got done. There it is. There's the pizza troll after a revision. Much better design. This is the villain from Justice League New 52. Paraxis, I think his name was. Has a very Kirby sort of Fantastic Four, Ronan the Accuser kind of look to him. More stuff for my children's book. That's my daughter. Yeah, you saw the painting for that. That was another concept. Same monster, my daughter again, but this kind of a medieval type thing. Friendly dragon, I reckon. Another character for New 52. There he is. Don't ask me what his name is. I can't remember, but he did appear in the comic. Okay, that's it. So that's about it for that book. So much time have we killed? Ooh, 5 minutes to go. Woo! Let's look at the old campaign. Have we gotten any more action here in the last couple minutes? We have we're 75 bucks away from 11 grand. How about that? Tremendous. Thank you guys so much. 5 minutes to go. 4 minutes to go now. Squib says, this makes me want to sketch right now, but I'm so tired. Amazing worker, and thank you. Aldion, not enough. This is a great stream. Thank you. Where are the kings at? In bed, I would guess. I don't like to do like big launch and closeout streams because you have to host too many people, and it just it stresses me out. I'd much rather just come on and draw. It's okay if someone else is hosting and I'm just like there, like on Ethan's channel or something. But if I have to host it, it's just like, I'd rather not. Well, I'll tell you real quickly as we last 3 minutes here, if you want to get your order in, get it in now. Let's see if we can get this to 11,000 just for the sake of fun. What I saw was I used to do like really crappy drawings in my sketchbook, like stick figure type stuff, just sort of like shorthand to remember an idea. And then I would see stuff like, Adam Hughes's sketchbooks, and they were so freaking brilliant. And I was like, I have got to start putting a little more effort into my sketches in my sketchbook so that if I die and leave all this stuff behind, people won't go, man, this guy sucked. I want some good stuff in there. So I spent a little bit more time in my sketchbook fleshing out the ideas that I had for either the concept drawings, for characters or stories or whatever, and tried to make them a little bit better so that if anybody looked through my sketchbook that I wouldn't be embarrassed. And so it takes a little bit more time, but it's really kind of cool to have, when you fill one up, to kind of have a whole entire book full of, maybe 70 to 80% of them are interesting pieces. And I've just got, like, I've probably got, I don't know, 15 sketchbooks completely full. And a lot of them are concept ideas for prints or illustrations or stories. And it's, I'm glad I do it because, some of that stuff I did, 20 years ago. And it's like, there's no way I'd remember it if I hadn't, put it down someplace. So it's the final countdown. Are we? Yeah, we're last minute, aren't we? Whew. Are we going to get there? Well, the thing is, it's not going to close down right away anyway. So we might get a trickle in to get this to 11. That'd be great. It's your last chance. We've got 1 minute to go or less. I love how it just says 1 hour left, but in reality, you've got 1 minute and then it just ends. 2, 10, 9:25. I got to tell you guys, I'm just real excited that we got over 10. That was my nervous point. So anything beyond that is just is gravy, as they say. Oh, there it is. Let's see. We're at 12. What does it say? Boom. There it is. Oh, it went into demand. It wasn't supposed to go into demand. Oh, well. I'll take care of that tomorrow. I don't want to deal with it tonight. But anyway, look at that, 10,925. If I'm just kind of tardy and maybe get around to closing this out tomorrow sometime, maybe we'll actually get to 11. But anyway, there we go, gentlemen. And if there's any ladies in the crowd, thank you guys for hanging with me here for, geez, what was it, 2.5 hours? 3.5 hours? It was 3.5 hours. Wow. Yeah, 3 hours, 15 minutes. How about that? Birdman Burr says, just back $65 and $25 garbage man. Great job on flying solo on a closeout stream. Hey, thank you, man. Thank you for backing. It's easy to do this when you can draw and talk about art, which I love to do. So anyway, you guys, thank you so much. Either go hang out with Rini or go to bed. That's what I'm going to do. Go to bed, not hang out with Rini. So I appreciate you guys coming in and joining me and making this actually a fun, enjoyable evening. I will, of course, scan this tomorrow and post it so you guys can see, that's a fairly accurate depiction, right? What you're seeing right there. But we'll go ahead and get this scanned and get it put up on Twitter and Facebook so that you guys can see what it looks like. Thank you, everybody, again. And what is today? Well, I guess we won't see you again till Sunday for Aaron Live at 4 o'clock Pacific time, Sunday afternoon. I'm pretty sure Shelley Showtime will be joining us. But anyway, until then, everybody, thank you so much. Have a great evening. Thank you guys again for joining me. Thank you for the congratulations. I appreciate it very much. We had a successful campaign. This is going to the printer next week, and hopefully we'll have these books out to you guys in less than a month. So we'll see how it goes, but I'll obviously keep you guys updated on everything. Thank you, and good night, everybody.